Nightclubs aren't what they used to be or what people think they are today. We can all agree on that. When you go to a nightclub, you'll see that there are a lot of people waiting in queues outside to enter. The bouncers keep an eye out to make sure only the attractive girls and the guys who are with attractive women are allowed entry. The strange thing is that everyone appears to believe that the club would be packed with people enjoying a great time inside. The place isn't as packed as it seems from the outside, though, as you enter. And even in the winters, you see women waiting outside with almost nothing but high heels, shivering in the cold, and you wonder why they would go to such lengths for a single night out at the club. To be completely honest, I didn't think much about this before I took the RP and went on to go my own way. I reflected on how foolish these individuals must be for spending hours waiting outside of clubs and for women to queue up while wearing high heels in the chilly weather. We've all heard that wearing high heels is meant to enhance a woman's beauty by emphasizing her curves and defining the contour of her legs. However, we rarely hear that wearing high heels affects men's behavior. A recent study from Europe suggested high heels help women get whatever they want from men more efficiently. In an experiment, the study had women wearing flats and heels stand on the street to try and get people to respond to the survey. The woman wearing flats barely had anyone stop for the survey. The woman wearing small heels had more than half of the men stop by and respond to her questions eagerly. And when the woman wore a big heel, nearly all men stopped to help her with the survey. For me, high heels are like a test because it's statistically proven it does something to men that makes them want to go above and beyond to cater to what women want. And women know this. They use this. And men keep falling for the high heel trap. But if a man is aware and awoke regarding the reality behind high heels, he can easily pass the test. So be warned, guys. Don't just go running to help that damsel in distress who's wearing high heels. It's a test, because if men give in to the high heel temptation, it will only lead to them buying drinks and food for women who will just be using their heel to their advantage. I mean, the whole idea of high heels being a symbol of patriarchy is contradictory. Why would men be willingly manipulated to cater to the needs of women wearing high heels who are only wearing them to get what they want, right? It really doesn't make sense. Why do women who probably have dozens of shoes still prefer wearing high heels? They know it's their special weapon to get what they want. It all comes down to women wanting power over men. During my clubbing days, when I chose to go with women who wore flats and pants instead of heels and those really short skirts, they were constantly ignored by bouncers who let the women with the heels and skirts inside the club. Maybe they looked more like club material, or maybe it was their vulnerability out in the cold and open that let the bouncers make their decision. I believe it's a bit of both. Because when a woman who's barely wearing anything walks past a club, it automatically attracts attention not only to her, but to the club as well, which is what the club wants. I think this is one of the main reasons why men who are swimming in the BP pool line up to such clubs, where there's always a line of women in miniskirts and heels, shivering in the cold. It brings up this urge to protect them, and when they go inside, they buy drinks for them to try to make them warm and comfortable. That is until they're just sidelined and told they're not their type or some other reason. So, getting to know a woman and deciding if you're going to buy a woman a drink is something that starts way before you enter the club. It's a complete game. I was in my teens when I started going to nightclubs, mostly all-age events where the girls ranged from 14 to 18 years of age and the guys from their teens to their 20s. So, you could be a guy in your late 20s and get to be with a girl aged 14 or 15. This was before the age of consent was 16. I never realized this at that time, that I could have also slept with a naive and generally nice girl who wasn't aware of how the clubbing world works. But as years passed, I grew out of the clubbing culture and focused on being in relationships rather than being one of those guys. I just didn't find the idea appealing that you're expected to do everything you possibly can for girls and buy them drinks in clubs. Otherwise, other older people who were also financially more stable could instead take that place and you'd be left alone. It just wasn't a favorable situation. And you know what? Once women realize they have power over men in this clubbing culture, they tend to maximize the exploitation. You're the person she'll lean on the whole night to have a really good time, and she might even puke in your car on the way back, which is something women think is totally okay for some reason. Even with cab drivers, who mostly try to avoid drunk women for the same reason. However, these nights are when cab drivers make the most money. And then there's the bouncers. They have their own dynamics. Usually, women make friends with them, enchant them, and entice them into letting them into clubs. And the women stay in touch with them to know which clubs they work at so they can avoid the lines outside and get preferential treatment. In order to have some social standing and someone to watch over them while they are sipping the beverages that guys buy them, they even date bouncers. Because they can take advantage of men, including bouncers and the men who buy them drinks inside, women will do anything to stay in the club scene. It really is such a shame. It's another justification for guys to stay away from clubs. Most guys who do prefer to go to nightclubs usually have 1 or 2 drinks at most, so they can easily buy them for women as well. Or guys get together for pre-drinks before they head to the club. When I used to visit clubs, I remember always feeling obligated to buy drinks, and then buy them for women. There's also a real disparity between different areas when it comes to clubbing. For example, hitting the clubs in Florida was a completely different and actually fun experience compared to places like Canada, where alcohol is much more expensive than it is in the States. Also, the women always seem too uptight in Canada. But in Florida, they really used to be out to have genuine fun. It's a different game in Europe, since Europeans are comparatively more easygoing than people who live in Canada, for instance. Especially in places like Spain and France, where the gender dynamics are different. Clubbing can be fun if you're in your teens or early 20s. Also depends on where you're clubbing. Just don't try to find a girlfriend there, because women mostly go to clubs to basically use men to have a good night. Be very careful. Women in their prime go to clubs in order to live off of the attention and validation they receive from men of all sizes and ages. Young girls who frequent clubs are real crowd pullers too. They raise the level of that club and enable more ticket sales, along with the sales of drinks inside. Since everybody wants to go to clubs that are frequented by young and beautiful girls in their prime, the brand equity of those clubs increases exponentially. With regards to MGTOW, clubs are more like zoos where everybody flocks to see the pretty birds or the majestic tigers, and the zoo owners do everything they possibly can to give them more visibility. Clubbing isn't what it used to be. Now it's about a bunch of thirsty men who are incredibly low value, simping after average girls who are only looking for the validation they're addicted to. And in all of this, the owners of the clubs make profits and entire generations get wasted on alcohol and waste away their resources of meaningless things trying to chase the wrong man and woman. Thanks for watching Man Reacts. Like, subscribe, and comment below.